Hello, welcome everybody, and I think I have all my stuff set up correctly today. So if you can, if somebody can't hear me or see me, please let me know in the comments, and I'll fix it as soon as I possibly can. Good to be here with you all on this. Finally, a little bit of fall here in Seattle. It has been bitterly cold for a while, but now it's just rainy. We even had a thunderstorm last night. So, thank you all for joining me. Thanks to all who joined me in the retreat last week, where we went into Nisargadatta and the sense of I am. And we spent a lot of the time talking about really the blocks to finding I am, which is it's partially what I wanted to talk about today. About 5-6 years ago, I was reading the Heart Sutra, which I've read many times, translated with commentary by my favorite translator and commentary, Red Pine, who's a fellow who doesn't live that far from me here in Washington. And he mentioned that he had been working on a translation of the Lankavatara. He got hired to do this commentary on the Heart Sutra, and he said, what a relief, because it was so much easier, because it was a really big job doing the Lankavatara. I'd never heard of the Lankavatara Sutra. So needless to say, I had to find out all about it, especially being such an epic piece that even he was struggling over. And so I read it, and then I reread it, and then I reread it, and then I read it again. And I think it was about the 5th time when the sheer magnitude of it and the depth of it really began to sink in. And there is one particular phrase in it that Buddha used that I don't believe I've read in any other sutra or in anything I've ever read of him saying ever, or any other Zen master or Buddhist master for that matter. And that's the phrase personal realization. Now that seems very strange, because in this world of non-duality, there is no person, right? The whole personal side of it is eschewed. And yet here's maybe the greatest master of all times, certainly in my opinion, the greatest teacher of all time, talking about the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. You know, wow. And I've pondered it ever since. Now, the interesting thing about it is one of the key places he uses that phrase is in where he's giving 4 bodhisattva practices. Now, the bodhisattva is an advanced student. They're an advanced practitioner on the path. And if you look, some of the traditions, they have like 10 steps to Buddhahood, right? The 8th and 9th are the bodhisattva path, the 10th being Buddhahood. And so the bodhisattva is the next step is, ta-da, the whole enchilada. And so these 4, the first 3 are profoundly, deeply, uncompromisingly non-dual. The first being becoming adept at perceiving the perceptions, at distinguishing the perceptions of your own mind. I mean, that's right in line with the first of the Eightfold Noble Path, which leads out of suffering, being right views. Discerning the perceptions of your own mind, to see that when we look at the world, we don't see the world per se. We don't see anything objectively. We see our own thoughts projected out as a world. And becoming really adept at noticing that and not projecting any objective quality on anything outside of us. Now that's a very advanced practice, as one can imagine, and a very non-dual one. Right? There's no person involved in that. Matter of fact, the person has to be excluded from that, because any kind of sense of personhood or personality or personal characteristics would be projected on absolutely everything you see. It would be like projecting the oasis in the desert. Right? You don't see the desert, right? Because you're seeing the oasis projected on it, or the snake in the rope. The rope's there, but there's no snake. Right? So what are you actually seeing? What's really there? The second is equally non-dual, where he says, perceiving the non-existence of external existence, which takes that perceiving discerning the perceptions of our own mind one step further, right? In that there's no external existence whatsoever. In fact, there's nothing out there. What exists is only your knowing of it and nothing else. There is no external existence. There is no universe. There is no world. There is no matter. There is no quantum or atoms. Those are all objects of mind projected onto what? Onto the self, onto the emptiness. The third then dissects time, eliminates time, and one of the teachings that is fundamental in Buddhism, but is eventually put aside, and that is avoiding views of arising, duration, and cessation. Brahman, Vishnu, Shiva, where we see things as arising, enduring for a while, and then going away. Like, the leaves, right? There's a bud, then a leaf, then it turns the beautiful colors, which we're experiencing now, and falling off the tree and dying. Everything has that cycle of birth, duration, and death. And perceiving, he said, avoiding views of that nothing ever really exists, that every single phase, at every split second, there appears to be that. In other words, there's no time. No thing ever really exists. Now that's pure non-dual. 1, 2, and 3, right down the line. And then the fourth, wham, out of nowhere. Delighting in the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. I remember, obviously, with just this exploding heart of gratitude, sitting with the Zen master 15 years ago. Oh God, more than that now. Maybe almost 20. Almost the end of the time we had together. And he was explaining a point, and I was still kind of looking for the truth, right? I discerned all sorts of stuff. I'd absorbed I am that a million times. I'd sat sesshin with Zen groups. I'd been flopping back and forth between the absolute and the relative, and he had made this fine point, and he was even drawing some diagrams on a thing. I said, that right there, what is that? This thing that was going back and forth, right? The relative, the absolute, the up, the down, the back and forth. And he said, if I wanted to send you a letter, where would I send it? I'd send it to Greg Walsh at this. He said, no. Precisely, where would I send it? And I said, okay, you'd send it to Gregory Walsh, 7135 Collins Avenue, apartment. And I stopped in my tracks. Me. It's me. And in that moment, it just exploded inside of me. That was actually the last moment of the entire event. Everybody said goodbye, the whole thing ended, and I sat there. The room was empty. I was still there. It took me a while to put myself back together and come out. In that moment, the looking for someone, something, just vanished. There was nothing left. There was only this flow. But notice, it wasn't anything abstract. It was personal. I was that. It wasn't like this abstraction of a God or some special being or the self or pure awareness. It was me. Right? It was, I did not become God, God became me. Right? Now, I have to point out that that state of utter bliss lasted for a while. I mean, it was really, really extreme. I would look at everything and I would see the entire history of it, right? I'd look at a beer cap top and I'd see the metal. I'd see the metaller just in the invention of ink and the people and the farmers feeding the people. And I mean, the whole world was right there in that bottle cap. But eventually that faded away, which of course was very troubling because I loved the bliss. And it was a while before I realized that even though the whole emotional high of the whole thing had faded away, that essential wisdom didn't. Everything I did, everything I taught, or my coaching, everything I was doing at the time had been transformed. And I hadn't even noticed it until much later. It was like, wait a minute, I never got stuck there again. Everything has been this flow ever since. I'm not there anymore. I had the wonderful opportunity, I was experimenting with doing some interviews with various people. I interviewed Jack Canfield and a few other, luminaries. And so I had the opportunity to interview Genpo as well, Genpo Roshi. And we sat and talked. It was a lovely interview for a long time. And I told him about this whole experience. And he was looking, he said, yeah, you're right. He says, you weren't like this before. He says, you really got it, didn't you? I said, yeah, I really did. It was recognized. And so I'm emphasizing the personal part of it. Now, this is the beauty of it. It is personal, but it's not a person. That is, it's individualized. It's unique, but it's not an individual, right? The self, the infinite, illimitable, indescribable, ineffable self, expresses itself in selfness, right? In everything, right? In this candle, in this bamboo, in this palm, in this little wire tree here, in the tea that I have been ignoring, and I should be drinking. All of this, you could look at it and say it has a self, or you could say that it manifests selfness. It's an individual, isn't it? It has particular kinds of characteristics. It's not a blob. The oneness is not a blob. It's not just, you can't distinguish it from something else. There has to be something else for it to distinguish, but that something else isn't an entity, right? It's this incredible oneness, so that the selfness, the self manifests as selfness. That which is not an individual manifests itself in individuality, but it's a simultaneous, spontaneous individuality that is happening an infinite number of times in infinite places all at once. Clear? Isn't that clear? It's perfectly clear, right? Oh, language is so clumsy. Oh, it's so clumsy, but it's so fun to try to put it into words. That's why we need artists. One of my students, I got to see her artwork for the very first time. It was just like, oh my God. So wonderful, so wonderful, so wonderful. So, one of the problems with the difficulties with non-dual teaching and the language of no self, no person, nothing there, no one here, nothing, no one to do, it's all an illusion, there is no world, is that we can get stuck in this blankness, in this sense of nothingness, which, if you really deeply read the Buddhist text, you'll find that they don't let you stay there. So, like in the Lankavatara Sutra, you have these three incredibly precise, unyielding instructions to the bodhisattva, followed by take delight in personal realization. Right? Which means that every insight you have about the nature of pure, boundless consciousness, that it is one and empty and infinite and without limits, delight in it personally. Jump up and down, dance, yell, kiss your husband, lover, boyfriend, whoever, right? Your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, right? Jump up and down, run, do whatever. I had the wonderful opportunity. I got invited to a Sufi event last night, and I know about the non-duality of Sufism. I did a reading on Balyani on the internet, and I'm doing a whole retreat on it coming up in a couple of weeks. And but I had an opportunity to go with a bunch of people who are practicing Sufi. I was invited by a Sufi master that I've had the opportunity to meet with, and actually do some personal work with, because he also does body work. And oh my God, what a wonderful experience! For almost 4 hours, 3 hours, like from 7 to 10, 3 hours, singing and drumming and pounding and the dancing and everybody moving, and it was just spectacular. My body was so happy, I slept like a baby. This whole other aspect to it, which is often missed. And even things like, Zen, the sitting of Sesshin and the like, remember that it's still morphing as it came into the West. It comes, as all Buddhist practices, and Advaita Vedanta as well, the ashram and the like, came from a very male monastic background in cultures that were very strictly hierarchical. It was all about the group rather than about the individual. And we're in a very different world here, right? So there's the whole body activity as well. So dance, sing. I'm reminded of a wonderful story that Joseph Campbell told. And I'll finish on this story. We'll get to the questions, so please, by all means, put in your questions. And he was at a conference of religions, a bunch of all sorts of religions, Japan, China, India, and the U.S., all different kinds, everything from evangelical to Lutherans, right? Academic and mainstream. And there was a talk by, I think it was a Shinto priest in, maybe I may have that wrong, from Japan. And he gave a talk about things. And Joseph overheard afterwards, everybody, sat around shaking hands and talking and that sort of thing. And there were several Christian ministers from the U.S. who were talking, and they said they really loved this speech. It was very inspiring. But they asked her, he says, we don't understand. What's your theology? What's your ideology? We don't understand it. And he says, theology? We don't have a theology. We don't have an ideology. We dance. I'll leave you on that note. So, dance. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to pull this a little closer, hopefully not knock anything off. Maybe I can lift it up here without disconnecting anything. I better leave it down here. Don't take any chances, G. Alrighty, Rosario in Madrid. Play on. There's my buddy in Sweden, Mary in New York, Ava in Poland. There's Brent in LA, man. David and Elaine in south of England. Hello, Robbie in Romania. My goodness, haven't had a repeat country yet. Devi Naga. Hello, Devi. Where are you? I like to know every place. There's Andrew. There's Carl in Ireland. Sarah Kay, when's your next retreat? I'm in Washington too. Oh, I don't know when the next in-person one's going to be. I just haven't been able to get enough people in one place to cover my expenses and a little extra to get there. I keep putting it out there. If some people can get enough people together, I'll go anywhere where I'm welcome. The next online retreat, I'm still fudging with the dates. It was going to be the 12th of November. I'm going to have to move it because my daughter-in-law's mother has died. It was a while ago. She donated her body to science, so they're going to have a memorial service that weekend. So I'm going down to Arizona to be with my son and his wife and my grandson down there. And I won't be back till midweek. I'm then going to be traveling, and Thanksgiving is coming, so it may not be till the beginning of December, which will push off the other retreat I was going to do about the Ribhu Gita, maybe even into January. Lisa's got a program coming up. That's this Tuesday. I'm going to be participating, but I'm a minor player in that one. I'll give a link to that later. We're going to be doing between now and the end of the year, Lisa and I have decided to do a couple of one-off Om School lives to dive into a subject. So if you're on the email list, Sarah, I'll be telling everybody all about it. You could do that. Just go to omschool.ca and get on anything that's there. The Me Time, it's a free event. Right up at the top, can't miss the list. You can register for that. That will get you on the list as well. So, Washington, it's a great state. So you've been freezing, and now I'm finally are finally enjoying fall as well. Hello, Guruji. Hello, Hassan. Great to see you, Atman. Guruji, I wanted to ask you about wars and the horrible things people do to each other. Oh my. Yeah, for a very short time at the end, the event last night was a special one because a Sufi master from Turkey came over and visited. Oh God, what a wonderful man. I had an opportunity to speak to him alone, just for a moment. Just a wonderful fellow. Didn't have all the sushi garb, spoke perfect English, although he does live in Turkey. And he brought that up. He's raising money to help rebuild this one town that was destroyed by an earthquake. He lives very close to the Syrian border. He told us that although the news hasn't covered it, Israel is also bombing Syria, completely secretly. And yeah, there's the Ukraine. It's going on all the time. We have to come to terms. We did actually a whole chanting around that. Peace within, peace without. Peace within, peace without. Probably went on for 10 minutes. Dancing in a big circle, chanting this with drums. One might say, well, what's that going to do? Oh, everything in the world. We have to sync up the inside and the outside, right? Because they're one. My comment is this. Look at your own internal defensiveness and conflict. When we see how the egoic mind is always defending its territory, it's not hard to see how that extends outward. We can see that the unhandled wounds and traumas and pains within ourselves end up growing to epic proportions in the world outside. That's our politics. Our world is run by children for the most part in men's bodies, boys in men's bodies. These are boys whose traumas were never healed. They were raised in cold, unfeeling families by parents who were raised in cold, unfeeling families. If you look at some of these leaders, their fathers were pathological. I won't mention any names, but I could, but it's not hard to see. I've been doing a lot of research of late. I have been probably for the last 10 years, but probably in the last year with intensifying over the last 3 or 4 months, into deep research into childhood trauma and the profound effect it has on our entire lives. And my particular interest, of course, is what gets in the way of somebody realizing who they are. What are these blocks that keep coming up every time you get an insight, and before you know it, it's gone? Right? It's not an accident. Right? The habits that keep coming up. We say yes when we want to say no, and no when we want to say yes. Where does that come from? Well, first off, it's not your fault. You're not to blame. and you're not broken. There are some very real things going on there, and I'm preparing a whole new set of videos that are going to dive into that subject, covering where it comes from, the process of energy healing and body healing around it, and then the spiritual aspect of it. The spiritual aspect of it is the part that's got it the least. There's a lot of somatic work on it. There's a lot of psychological and emotional work on it, but nobody's brought a spiritual perspective to it, which I hope to do. But that's really why people do horrible things. Think of the horrible things you've done to yourself. Think of the horrible things that may have happened to you. I sit in a position that for some may not seem very a very nice position to be, but just because of the things that have happened to me in my life, the things I've cultivated in my life, and now the cultivated capacity to create a very safe container for people, I hear the world's worst stories you could possibly imagine. I've seen the horrible things that have happened to people. And you ask, how could these things possibly happen? Well, I know how they can happen. And when I see the things going on in the world, I can't immediately place a blame. It's so easy, right? You look at the Ukraine and you can blame Netanyahu, right? And then you go from him and you go, well, of course you can also blame Biden and Trump and Obama and Clinton, all the way back, because Israel couldn't do it without American support. And then you can go, oh, well, then there's also the Christian right that supports them, and the Jewish lobby that supports you. I mean, the finger can, where does it stop, right? Where does it stop? But at every place you look, you're going to find the same thing. Broken, hurting, painful, because that's where the desire, the lust for power comes from, right? Unprocessed wounds. That you have to understand, and I think Maslow had this right, and it was just psychological. He said the only time human beings become violent is when they can't get their basic needs met. And our basic needs are for more than just food and shelter and the like. The human being needs touch, they need compassion, they need acceptance, they need to be taught how to self-regulate. Children don't know how to do that. Their emotions are all over the place. They need to learn from parents how to calm themselves. What if their parents don't know how to do that? What happens to the kid? Well, they also get fucked up. It's a horrible chain that actually has its roots from when we stepped out of hunter-gatherers and we began farming. The concept of property and wealth and position and power and hierarchy didn't exist prior to that. All of it began to start in infighting and all of that. So it's something that's happened. And to give you just a gleam of light, it's not hard to heal, but we have to start here. When you heal something in yourself, when that space opens up, when your body lets something go, and it has to be let go of in the body's way more than we think it is. This is information, not an object. When something inside of you is genuinely healed, it makes it that much easier for the rest of the world to be healed. These kinds of things are being shown by Rupert Sheldrake. He calls it the morphogenic field, and some of it I kind of disagree with, but he's showing that even crystals and organisms, if they learn something new over here, an organism on the other side of the planet without any connection whatsoever will start to learn that same thing faster. They've shown it in rats, they've shown it in the formation of crystals. It's a real thing. If you heal something here, it's going to be easier for somebody who has no connection with you somewhere else in the world. It'll be easier for them to heal it. So every effort you make towards yourself benefits absolutely everybody. This is becoming an established fact. I already know it's a fact. I'm not a scientist. I can't prove it in those terms, right? And so you have way more power than you think you do. Which is why this path is so important that we're walking, and why it's so important for it to be not just spiritual inquiry. It has to be that, but also a path of personal healing and personal realization. So, thank you for that, Hassan. Beautiful, beautiful question. Anne's blog. Hello, Anne's blog. And that other word at the end that I'm not even going to try. Good evening from Denmark, and thank you, GP, for this video. You're very welcome, very welcome. And there's Daryl in a beautiful and sunny Maryland. There's Tebby. Hello, Tebby. Hi. The objective reality, like this universe, exists outside of your subjective understanding? So how did you conclude that all is in our thought? Personality has pattern which develops in many years. I would invite you to question the objective reality existing outside of your subjective understanding. This is quite questionable, and it's an assumption. And if you ask a quantum person, they're going to say, I'm not so sure about that. Matter of fact, Niels Bohr, him along with Max Planck are the ones who developed the mathematics and all of it. Quantum theory is theirs, and quantum mechanics as well. They said that which we regard as real is made of that which cannot be regarded as real. So objective reality is a concept that we place on experience. Now, I agree that, when I look at the camera sitting in front of me and the computer sitting over here, the experience of it is that there's a me and I'm looking at something. But I have that exact same experience in my dreams at night. And I know full well when I wake up that that's not at all the case. So I'm not going to say it's one way or another. If I can just instill the potential doubt to say, well, it's an assumption, and it's a very strong assumption. There's a lot of people, there's some very outspoken, strict materialists who say, yeah, it has to be that way. But when you press them on it, you press anybody on it, you see it's an unproven assumption. It's a hypothesis. It's not even gotten to the point of a theory. Okay? And there are other scientists like Rupert Sheldrake, like Bernardo Kastrup, some others there escaping me, and some others historically have said, not so true. Spinoza was another one. Even Einstein was questionable about it. It's very strange. It's a very strange world, and so even when you say it's all in our thought, you can see that if I have a model of the universe as being objective, and then I say it's all in my thought, I'm going to be thinking of it as me, my head here, a brain, thinking, and then somehow making this thing out there. You see, it's the same model, right? When you try to look at consciousness without a reference point of a brain at all, but a brain is just another object within that consciousness, you get a different model completely. A totally non-material model of consciousness, which is non-dimensional, non-spatial, non-temporal. It's another model altogether. So you can't even think of it as thought. We're using words from that model, plugging it into this model, because we don't have a language really. Well, we do. It's the language of Advaita Vedanta, but it's not really accepted in that. It's the not to. How do you approach experience without the subject-object model to assess it by? Looking at it totally from the point of view of my own experience. Now, from my point of view of my experience, I have no evidence whatsoever that anything I'm experiencing exists independently of me. Now that's an experiential reality. Now that isn't saying that alone is proof that it doesn't, right? I'm just saying that it proves at least that it's dubious, and that some more study and exploration is required. But if you're going to do that, you expect the answer to conform to the model that assumes that it is an objective fact, and the entire structure of classical analysis based on the fact that it is, you can't expect any kind of answers to have to conform to that. And that's, of course, what we're doing. We're saying, well, consciousness model must answer the questions in the same way. Well, no, it doesn't have the same kind of objective criteria for answering the questions. The models don't fit. It has a different language, different criteria, different way of proving it, but everything about it is different because it's not the same. It is a wholesale shift. So I can, completely from the model of consciousness only, explain all of it, including the development of a person, the personality, structures, forms, all of it, without making them an objective reality. Just like I could imagine having a dream from beginning to end, having consistency and a flow and the whole thing completely acted out, and none of it having objective existence. There was actually a wonderful episode of Star Trek Next Generation where that actually happened. Picard experienced an entire life, and it was 45 minutes long. And he came back and he even knew how to play the flute. So, my job isn't to prove it, because I can't. I can't. All I can do is introduce you to the possibility and give you a different way of exploring the question and let you come to the conclusion yourself, which is the path anyway. That's all any teacher can do. No teacher wants to put another idea in your head. They just want to look over here, see, does it match? Is it right? Is it wrong? You have to be the one that discovers the truth. You're the one who has to jump out of the tub naked going, Eureka, and run down the street. And I hope you do. I hope that helps, Tabby. This is really such a powerful, this is a way to engage, right? This is true scientific inquiry, right? Don't stop. Don't stop till you get it out, right? Hassan Osho said two paths had the most enlightenment, Sufism and Buddhism. Yeah, it's probably true. I think from Jordan, oh man, wow, Daddy, wonderful, Jordan. I don't think I've ever had anybody from Jordan before. That makes me very happy. I mean, I don't know of any tradition that has produced more enlightened beings than Buddhism, but maybe Sufism. I don't know that much about it, so I can't say. All I know is that what I've read from the masters, like Rumi and Arabi, Balyani, Hafiz, it's just blowing my mind every time I do. The core of all of them is non-duality. Yes. Why did he need theology? Choiceless awareness is my awareness. It's my theology. That's a good one. That's a good one. Choiceless awareness is my theos, my God. Tell me. I wish to manifest a lot of wealth and beauty, prosperity around me. My present reality is quite different. Is there a role of me to have in this present reality and bring future reality? If there is, me who is desiring, feeling scared. Yeah, there is. I don't want to deny that. A lot of the non-dualities say, no, there's nobody there, there's nothing to feel. But we all have a natural desire towards success, don't we? I mean, I want to see 100 people watch this. I'd love to get 1,000 views on my videos, right? I was happy when I hit 10,000 subscribers. I'd like to hit 100,000 and get that little plaque from YouTube, right? Since they have the right to monetize my videos whether I say yes or no anyway, I might as well get paid for it, right? And it's true. They changed 2 years ago, they changed the terms of service. So if they want to put ads on my videos live or pre-recorded, they have every right to do so. There's nothing I can do about it, which they do on the phone and on the set top on TVs. I'll go into the TV and suddenly there'll be an ad in one of my meditations, for crying out loud. It's like, oh dear. Okay, well, at any rate. So, what I want, let me make a distinction. There's a distinct difference between like the manifestation and a lot of the law of attraction ideas and holding a right thought and raising your vibration and creative visualization. Right? We have to recognize that the state of our lives is a result of a self-image that we're holding. And we're just really attached to that self-image. We believe it to be ourselves. Now, if that self-image changes, the circumstances of our life are going to change. Right? And there's lots of ways to do that. Creative visualization, to actually begin to see yourself as a prosperous human being. Now, if you can see that that prosperous human being is connected to the reality of yourself as the infinite being, that is, of course, how much more prosperous can you get? But the emphasis is on knowing yourself as you really are and not becoming attached to the outcome. You find that there's freedom, and you find within yourself a sense of prosperity that's there long before it manifests in any form. So now you found the substance of it, which informs the whole system, which eventually will manifest. So remember that the sense of struggle with wealth and beauty and the like resulted simply by the way your nervous system was programmed through your parents, their attitude, the things you experienced, the beliefs that were attached to you and the like. And learning to transcend those and go beyond those is part of this practice. It's part of the process. Now, what's important to realize is that the whole law of attraction things tries to do that solely through the mind. And that's impossible because the mind comes online last. By the time the mental processes have formed images and concepts of ourselves, the deed's done. It's in the body. And then the emotions, and then the mind. Trauma is a physical thing. It's in the body. Right? So if your body is in a state of contraction because of deep wounding when you were a child, right, you can do all the mental work you want, and the body is simply going to say no. Right? It's not true because it's in this contracted state. And it will even interpret your attempt to think of yourself as a successful, wealthy, beautiful human being as a threat. Because let's say you're a child, and well, you were a child. When you were a child, let's say you're expressive, because every child's expressive, right? I spend time with my granddaughters, right? One's 7, the other's 2. The 2, she's a little tornado, right? She's an absolute. She comes over, grabs my wife. I mean, just. There's no restrictions whatsoever, right? It's difficult to contain her, right? So you have to a certain degree, but the mission is contained without inhibiting, right? Keep the spirit, but keep them safe, right? So anyway, but what if it's a really severely restricting environment like I had? You learn to contract and contract and contract. Now that contraction says, if I express myself, if these natural impulses come out, I'm going to get hurt, right? So our natural expression, our natural impulse towards self-expression, which means towards wealth, towards success, towards reaching out, towards intimacy, towards beauty, towards all those things, there's that impulse to express that, which is where success and all of that comes from. Inside, there's a built-in defense that goes, nope, can't happen. Because it assumes danger. Now, if that isn't gotten to and released, and that's in the body, it's not in the mind, it doesn't matter what you do up here, nothing's going to change. And that's why it's a much more deep process. And that's why even the non-dual understanding of who you really are can get stuck here. That's why you have to go all the way in, which is why it's always the delight for me when I listen to people like Tara Brach or Jack Kornfield, who don't ignore that. They're Buddhist teachers. They're also trained psychologists. And they do practice what they call Buddhist psychology. And they do the whole 9 yards. And you listen to somebody like Gabor Mate, who also is who is a big fan, a student of Adyashanti, and Peter Levine, who quotes Buddhist monks, right, who do deep inner work. The Sufi masters, who I know, does somatic experiencing to help the spiritual community, his own spiritual community, release these traumas. It's just a holistic approach to the thing. So if you are open to doing the whole line of the work, right? Instead of just going, who's feeling the desire, and you can see how twisted that can get, right? If I had somebody who was very confused, he was really having a lot of trouble. He went through hell. He was just literally tortured as a child, and now he's got all this pent-up anger, and he hasn't inflicted it on his kids, but his wife and he get into arguments about stuff, and he wanted my help, and so I was giving his help. But he's been studying with these very, very non-dual teachers, right? And so I was helping with some stuff, and he was like getting a little bit of relief. And then I was said, well, they said that if you start on the healing journey, you're going to be stuck forever because there's nobody there to heal. And I said to him, I said, look, when you heard things like that, did it make you feel safe and free and loved? Or did it make you feel afraid? I said, it made me feel afraid. I said, well, there's your answer. Did the non-dual speak go into your heart and go, oh yeah, that's right, and there was a sense of letting go? Or did it go, oh no, I've got to conform to this, yet something else I've got to do right? And therein lies the difference. What's hearing it? Oftentimes it could be the mind with yet something else it's got to do in order to earn its forgiveness or its healing or whatever it is that it's looking for. And so there's got to be this flow, this balance. So the non-dual reality can pierce, can get into you, can get all the way in. And sometimes that needs the help of emotional healing and releasing from the body. Because the initial split, the thing that cuts us off from who we really are, also cuts us off from what we really feel. Cuts us off from our body, from nature, from the world, from passion, from intimacy, from gut feelings, from our instincts, from knowing when it's dangerous and knowing when it's not. It's really the whole juice and vitality of life. So I want you to do this. I want you to just envision yourself. Just do this for 30 seconds. Envision yourself in the life as that wealthy, beautiful, prosperous you. Right? And when a resistance comes up to that, oh, okay, there's the resistance. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. I'm just going to do this for a moment. And then go and be with the resistance. And if you know how to tap, you can do some tapping with it and say, well, thank you very much. I know you're just trying to keep me safe. And don't see it as something you have to get rid of, but approach it with real loving awareness that this is just another part of you. It's nothing, it's not an enemy. It's not somebody that's got to be vanquished. It's a part of you that needs to be lovingly brought to the party so that it supports that very natural human need for companionship, for success, for place, for being part of the community. Because it's this flow between having my individuality recognized and acknowledged, but also put to use within the community. Because what's the use of art if nobody sees it? What's the use of dance if nobody dances with you? Last night was the most wonderful thing. There was probably 40, 50 people in this huge circle. Sometimes it was so tight we could barely move, all holding hands, just making these steps and chanting, glorious. Glorious. I couldn't do that by myself in here. Oh, I hope I'm conveying the whole picture of this, because that's what love is. Right? Remember, to know that you are nothing, the non-dual, is wisdom. To know that you are everything, the dual, is love. Between these two, my life flows. It's from one of the greatest non-dual masters of all time, Nisargadatta Maharaj. How is that, Tabby? How to have good relation with narcissistic wife without getting into emotional turmoil. How to love if you're not getting love in return. You can't. It's not humanly possible. You end up burning yourself out, dying inside, cutting yourself off. And the only reason you're there is because you had to learn to die inside, cut yourself off, in order to be able to survive in your childhood home. You'll need assistance probably in getting out of it. If they're not willing, and if you're in that relationship, and if it's somebody, depending on, now be slow to label somebody. Narcissism is a word that people love to throw about. I have known real pathological narcissists. It's a real thing, but it's a real mental illness. Or it's a spectrum, going just from people who are just selfish, self-absorbed, and they can be very good people doing good things, and just kind of like a little arrogant, right? And just kind of want everything for themselves, all the way up to they cannot see anything but their own perspective, all the way to people who take pleasure in the misery of others. So don't go assigning labels that are really meant to be that are really psychologically precise terms, right? There's a dynamic in the relationship in which she's getting her needs met and you're not, right? She's needing a lot, and at one time you were probably very happy to give her those things, feeling really good about it, but now you're not. I've been in those relationships myself, by the way. It's not that common for men these days, unless it's two women. I think it's a man and a woman. Anyway, it's not that uncommon. So taking back the territory is maybe a little bit. It will be difficult because the dynamic has been established. There's an expectation. You may be interested in. This is part of the territory where I'm exploring with Lisa. She's doing a free thing called Mastering Me Time. It sounds like trivial cliche me time, but it's a lot deeper than that. It's how to begin to take the steps that begin to honor you. I'll put the link up there if you want to check it out. It's actually if you go to omschool. It's right there. It's free. You can listen to it. There'll be some tips in there for little tiny things you can do with yourself. You don't have to clamor. It won't be major changes with somebody else. It won't set them off. Actually, if you just go to omschool.ca, it's right at the top. It's next Tuesday. It's free. You might get something you can use. Little things you can inject into your day that will help begin to reclaim some territory for yourself, which will strengthen you, begin to bring back a sense of your own power, because that's what has to happen. Very, very gradually, you're empowered to the point where some real substantive changes can take place. And one of two things will happen. Your partner will either begin to respond because deep down that's what they really want, because they want to have more balance, or it'll go away. It'll move away. Maybe difficultly, maybe difficult, maybe easy. You never know. For me, it'll happened, it was very difficult, very nasty. So, so anyway, my heart goes out to you, my friend, and I hope if I can be of any help, we can be any help. We're there for you. That's why I do this. Tea break, everybody. This is Tea with G. I should put my little logo up here, right? A little tea leaf. I've actually done some designs for teacups, if tea mugs. If maybe another way I can support me on the show here, other than Patreon and buy me a coffee. Play on. For people struggling with stored trauma before or after realization, I can highly recommend trying out acupuncture. I've been to some sessions now, and it made wonders with letting go of tension. Almost every time I start to cry, very liberating. Yes, acupuncture, acupressure, EFT. Anything that involves the body. Yoga, Qigong. I do Tai Chi. Not a master, just recently started doing it. I actually just found my body. I'm in the park one day, and all of a sudden my body just very slowly, all by itself, automatically started making these slow movements, like it was it was Chinese in a past life or something. They weren't anything in particular, and I thought, my body wants this is like, so I looked something up online and started doing some movements. My body really liked it, just the slow, concentrated movements. I also find myself spontaneously running and the like. So if you listen to your body, it'll tell you what it needs. So yes, if you can afford some regular treatments, chiropractic, but that's a little bit more on the medical side, but it's good as well. Any kind of medical, EMDR, again, tapping, which is a nice easy one that anybody can do. Carl, hi GP. How do I extend my experience of I am out in the world to start including people in my life again? I feel I should, and yet if I'm honest, I feel more content with being on my own most of the time. Yeah, I do too. I'll tell you, last night, before I went to the sushi event, my friend who invited me, it was like, it started at 7, it's about a half hour away from here. And I was sitting here at 6, like, I don't want to go. I don't feel like going. It's kind of rainy. I don't feel like I'm grumble. I sat there quietly for a bit, and it's like, I started getting a bit drowsy, and so I go, what am I going to do? I'm just going to sit here all night? It's like, get your ass up and go. So I did. God, did I enjoy it. There was the same thing back in 2016, after I had just had 3 significant crashes in my life, one right after the other. I mean, just cut into everything. I lost everything. My relationship, divorce, money, just everything. I was staying with my son down in Arizona for a while, and I was going. It was like February. It's like, what am I going to do? I think maybe I should do. My son said to me, Dad, what the fuck are you doing? Go. I said, maybe I'll go to India. I said, what are you doing? Go. You don't have any responsibility. Go. Said, oh yeah, I don't. Okay. And I went to India. What else does a 63-year-old man who's just lost everything do? Go to India. So just sometimes you just do it, right? And then you'll feel it and go, yeah, because you that sense of contentment isn't. You have to understand that you cannot absolutely trust all of your feelings, right? Feelings are closer to the truth usually than thoughts are, but they're not the truth. They too, people in their comfort zone who don't want anything to change feel content. Oh, I'm really content with it. It's nice, right? No. Sometimes, I've worked with people where, they're traumatized. The freeze mechanism. Again, I won't go into it now. I'm going to make some videos really describing in detail what that is and how to recognize it. But you can imagine themselves just being frozen. You can't move. There's nothing you can do. And I said, well, can you move a finger? Oh, yeah, I can move a finger. And was anything else moving? Oh, yeah, all of a sudden. Oh, my toe's moving. Remember when it's frozen, imagine the possum playing dead. Right? Well, they're not playing, they are. As far as any signs of life are concerned, they're dead. Have you ever seen a picture of a possum, playing possum? You couldn't tell. It would take an EKG machine to find the signs of life. They are in a complete state of fully conscious comatose. Now, something begins to move as they go from that free state back into fight or flight, that state of alertness, ready to do something. So we have to get into the place that contentment can just be, and I know this from experience, can just be the sense of, I'm completely cut off from everything that's bugging me. Nothing is in my range. I am safe in this little cocoon. Right? I'm not experiencing life, but I'm safe in my cocoon. And that's why I say, don't trust it. Let yourself experience. We want to be whole out there in the world, on the subway, walking down the street, meeting people, engaged in new events, exciting events, in a crowd, not just alone chanting Om, in a zendo. And that's how you do it. When you're in that state of contentment, find in your body that place of well-being, right? And then act from that place. Bring it with you out into the world. And if you do so, go out, sit in a coffee shop by yourself, right? And then go engage with something. Go to a party. Go to an event where you actually have to engage and talk with people. Remember, we human beings, that are this part of us, we're communal beings, right? A child that is not held and loved and interact. I watch my 7-year-old granddaughter. I've known her since she was born, and I've watched every stage. I've been very close to her whole life, and I've just watched because she's not inhibited about these things. And I watch her in a new place, and she's a little bit shy, but it takes her about 10 minutes before she's up to somebody and talking, and before you know it, oh, I've got a new best friend, Baba. And they're talking, it's back and forth. It's like, it's as natural as can be. That gets inhibited in us by traumas and the wounds that we suffer because we're afraid that we're not going to be loved, we're not going to be rejected. And that requires both the introspection and the work, and then taking the chance to go out and be willing to be in the place where those parts of us that know how to be in the world with people can awaken. Right? And that's part of the overall awakening. So that there's this sense of contentment at being in life. I heard the story of this Tibetan Buddhist master. His nickname was the Butterball. He was this plump little guy in the orange robe, and somebody was showing him around New York City, and not the best of neighborhoods, and they got held up at gunpoint Here's this Buddhist monk, and he starts laughing. He says, "Oh, I've read about this. This is really happening. Oh, this is so exciting." And the robber just totally freaked out and ran off. He thought it was the most entertaining thing in the world. Oh God, a real experience in New York City. You want to have that kind of thing going on. I'm sure. Gradually, you don't want to just kind of dive into it, right? So, is that helping you out there, Carl? Hello, Baba. Hello, Jennifer. So good to see you. Tabby, is law of attraction law of ego? Then what is the law of being? How to create harmony amongst our different selves? The law of attraction, as it's normally presented, is really a watered down version of what's very, very natural. And because the time it happened at, because it appeared in a very materialistic culture, it got reduced down to really just a sweet gift for the ego to give it permission to get whatever it damn well pleased without any consequences. And as a result, for most people, it did more damage than good. It left more disappointed, hurt people in its wake than can possibly be counted. And a couple of people who got rich off of it, a couple of people who it actually did work for. But in my experience, those were people who were already extremely healthy, emotionally healthy. They'd already processed. I mean, I know one guy, it works for him really well, but he's very well adjusted. He did a lot of work on himself in hypnotherapy. He's the only guy who practices NLP that I know of that I didn't know it, because he's really humble and open and honest and just this beautiful human being. But he'd already done all this work on himself, so for him it was just another level that he really understood. And so it didn't meet with the same kind of desperate person who hadn't. So it became a way of trying to bypass the inner work, right? So it then became a gift to the ego. And if you listen to the luminaries of it, like Abraham Hicks and the like, you never hear the word love. Never. And I've listened to a bunch of it, and I think maybe once I heard the word love mentioned. And so I kind of like, well, what really is this all about? It's not that it's not true, right? It's just not the whole truth, right? And so how do you create harmony? Well, you have to start at the root. And at the root is our relationship with ourself, right? So I can tell from what you're talking about, you have some spiritual maturity, right? You have some mature spiritual knowledge about the non-dual, and so you have an understanding of the real nature of the self and where it all comes from it, right? And that there is this transcendent self. Now, how do we take this understanding and bring it into our human lives? Well, that's the key. We have to understand the human life. What is it? What is the human life all about? What makes somebody wholly human? What are the parts? We can't ignore the human. It's one of the big mistakes. Again, my Sufi friend, we had just an immediate rapport talking about how the spiritual community, with all its assets and its wonderfulness and its discipline and its practices, it's like completely ignored this whole realm of these deep wounds that haven't been processed. And so it's the lesser is subsumed into the greater. The human is brought in to the realm of the transcendent. Like my realization of that I'm nowhere on this point, right? I'm fully human and fully divine, right? It's neither this nor that nor both nor neither. The human is divine. The divine is human. There's no separation between the two. My desire for success and wealth is as divine as my desire for the absolute freedom from all of it. Right? My compassion for suffering is as real as my understanding that it doesn't exist. As Balyani put it so beautifully, God takes the last step on the journey that never happened. And the Bodhisattva vow, oh my God, the Bodhisattva vow puts it so elegantly. I mean, it goes like this. Suffering beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. And having saved all beings from suffering, no being has been saved. Now to the mind it just goes, what? But when you look at it, that's exactly it. It just flows beautifully from the absolute. There's nobody here, there's nobody to save, nobody suffered. And on the other side, they're numberless suffering beings. I'm going to save every single one of them, right? And I'm going to save myself. I'm one of them. Right? So there becomes this loving embrace of my own feeble, broken humanness. And that's where it starts. I embrace my own deep, inherent, absolute, overwhelming, epic level fucked upness. I start there. Now the non-dual understanding begins to penetrate right to the depths of my soul. I'm not some abstract master out there somewhere. I'm just a very human guy with a broken heart that was miserably abused as a child, that sank into despair and freeze mode and lost touch with himself and lost touch with his own humanity and got lost in the absolute and lost in all sorts of things. And just little by little found his way back, found himself to the loving self-acceptance. At first got lost in the absolute. That loving self-acceptance was, oh, it doesn't exist. Then it became, oh my God. Okay, I'll look at that. And then it became, oh my God, the humanity, come. That's how you do it. That's how you create harmony among what appear to be different selves. They're not different selves. They're all aspects of you that got fragmented. In shamanism, that's referred to it as the shamanic journey is the calling back together of the fragmented soul. Right? It's a calling back home, calling it back to the fire, back to the community, back to the home. It's not just back; it's back to the wholeness. And that's the process. I hope I'm describing this well, because it took me a while to bring all of this down into the heart, where I was willing to feel my own pain, to feel it in my body, and to let my body do what it needed to do to release it, and to let other people to do that, to be able to create the safe container in order for that to happen, and just realizing more and more that it's the kind of thing that we need help. We need each other to do this, okay? Yes, we need time by our alone. We need meditation. We need solitary practice and self-inquiry. We need to be things that we can do on our own, and movement and all sorts of things in terms of nutrition and habit stacking and various kinds of techniques that Lisa will be teaching in her Mastering Me Time, that we'll be teaching together in some follow-up courses. But it also takes group, community, sangha, people doing it together. It takes working with a guide, right? With a coach, with a therapist, with with a body worker, with an acupuncturist, somebody had suggested. It takes all of it. Because we are both solitary and communal. We're both individual and group. You cannot separate the two. We are one being. It is a flow between that absolute oneness and the absolute wholeness, the manyness, the one and the infinite. And so I hope that gives you kind of a start to the process. Every feeling you have, every thought that comes up, every bit of resistance that comes up as you try to imagine yourself as wealthy or successful or whatever it is your ambitions reach toward, and every feeling of resistance or self-demeaning or judging thought that comes up, or feeling within your body, if you can embrace it in love, as this is just an aspect of me that is trying to keep me safe and just doesn't know how. It did it the best it could under the circumstances back then, and doesn't know how to support me now. It's a completely different way of looking at it. Look at your inner world, your body, all these processes as a rescue dog that just doesn't know how to be in the world where it might be loved. And you pretty much won't go wrong with that metaphor. So, thank you, Tabby. Hey, speaking of the angel, there's Lisa who will be doing her class. Just go to omschool.ca, right up at top. Can't miss it. Little kitten, mastering me time. There's Jennifer again. Grimace. The dream at night is just a dream within the dream. A few breadcrumbs to help us understand the simulation better. Yeah, pretty much. Dream within a dream within a dream. And sometimes I've had dreams in which I remembered another dream. And then I woke up and said, did I actually have that dream? Or did I just think I had a dream because I was remembering a dream in another dream? That happened just last night. It was like some young girl saying, who wanted a teacher, and she remembered me, and I remembered her from another time. Was it another dream? It was like, oh my God. It's like, it was a real, really a real Mobius strip. It's like, oh, I don't know. Gonna let that one go. Oh, we've leveled up to scientific inquiry. Oh, we went there for a moment, and now we're just back to heart healing. Not the meditation. Nope, don't know what that's about. Brent, love you, G. It's fascinating having a burning question for you, suddenly just being observed, and then watching the one who had the question suddenly not even being there. Yep. That can often happen, and the question going. And you may even notice how the mind wants to, wait a minute, because the mind wants to have a questioner, because then the mind's got something to do. And yet there's a very calm and a very satisfied feeling in the absence of the question. Because the reality of your being is, you already know. You know who you are. Now that doesn't mean questions don't matter, and there isn't stuff to know, because right, I mean, things I need to know how they work, and I've got this mixer here that I plug it in, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? And I need to know why. So there's that kind of knowledge, but then there's the knowledge of the self, which is not the same. It's not a subject-object relationship. It's a different kind of knowing. And so in that, it's just kind of disappears into a knower and known continuum. They just kind of fold together. So beautiful. Jay. Hari Om, G. Hari Om, Jay. G and J. And everyone. Probably going to bring this up on Tuesday's class, but I have terrible time with procrastination. I could start it, but then immediately I'm like, nah, I'll get to it later. Well, two things I could recommend. One is a practical step, and the other is a inquiry step. And first is to just notice that there's self-criticism and self-judgment around it, right? Oh, you should be there, right? And that, the common thing is power through, you make it work, you can do this, blah, 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 right? Which, of course, if it worked, you would have done that by now. So just kind of notice the impulse to inquire, or to the impulse to procrastinate. And you don't have to be in the situation to do that. You can just think back, okay, I was in this situation, I had to be doing it, there was a feeling. And then just be with the feeling. Not inquire mentally, but more somatically in the body. Just what did that feel like? Right? Recognizing as you do that something is afraid, something doesn't want to do this for some reason that you're not aware of. Right? And you don't care what the reason is. And the body's reason for not wanting to do it may have nothing to do with anything you've ever known or could ever know. And it may never, ever reveal it to you. Right? And I say this, and it's really important, because if there's some kind of traumatic event that happened that made certain things scary for it to do, no matter what, right? That wants to put certain things off, to even reveal to you what that event was, could be so humiliating that it would be traumatizing for it to even remember it. So you don't even want to know. We're making it so safe that it doesn't even have to reveal itself. Right? It's just whatever. And then as you're doing that, just sit there and notice what's happening in your body. You may get a twitch, a shiver, something, a finger might start, a toe. And if your body starts moving in some way, let it. I recommend you do this when you're alone, because sometimes your body can do some stuff that's going to look pretty weird. Because there's stuff that can happen. And let it. Just let it. When you're driving in your truck, right, and you're all by yourself, you can do these things and still be concentrating on the light. It'll just be kind of like, and you're up higher, nobody's in the cars are going to see you. You'll be fine, right? But just allow the body itself to discharge the energy, because this is very physical energy. It is not here. It's not even emotional, and that's what the body needs. Think of it as an animal. The animal isn't thinking about it. It's not us discerning it. It's just pure physical energy pulsing through the system, and then just let it do that. And then in order to help with that process, the other thing I want you to do is I want you to something that you find you procrastinate on, sit there and imagine yourself completing it. This is creative visualization. And when that feeling of procrastination comes up, or that feeling, sometimes, some of the time, you might want to then say, okay, put that aside and go with the feeling like I just described. But other times you might say, thank you for wanting to keep me safe. But right now, I'm just going to be with this. And see yourself completing the action. And completing it successfully and happily, getting to the end, being proud, showing off your work, maybe even bringing it to class, getting a plaque, right? But actually completing the process with pride, right? That's the creative process. So you're hitting both sides of it. So that's the doctor's prescription. I'll write it off. You can pick it up at your local Walgreens. Max. Hello, Max. GP. Did you ever hear that the cosmos is downloadable in the form of insights and so on? I get these downloads since the person fell away. Now I don't know anymore because I don't know what I'm doing. Feels like a person formed again via the downloads. Good. Good, Max. Good. Yes, the person forms to give voice to the download. Otherwise, it's like, look, if all the beautiful music that's going through the airwaves didn't have a radio, who'd hear it, right? If this guy, right now, I'm sure all of you that are watching me are watching it on some device that's connected to Wi-Fi, right? Okay, if there was no device, right, the Wi-Fi, there's a million, well, there's a lot of people around you, right, that aren't seeing this, right? And if there's no devices, the Wi-Fi could be just throwing it off everywhere, as it is. It's a big bubble, right, like 300 feet. And I would not exist, wouldn't I? So it has to have the form, right? So here's the deal. It's a very important distinction. The download, right, which is the pure information, the pure knowingness, the pure form, right? The essence of it is the emptiness. But remember, in shunyata, which translated emptiness in English, means pregnant emptiness. Meaning it's not nothing, it's something. It's like music wanting to be a song, right? The song is there to be created. I remember when I wrote a lot of music, it really, I could feel in my body when a piece of music wanted to get written. I knew my ass had to get to the piano. And I'd sit down, sure enough, there it was. It would come. It was a feeling that I had. We have that feeling we're having a conversation with. So you can feel when it's going to come out of your mouth. Now, what if there was no mouth there? Right? Now, that's going to come out, which means that the download takes a form in order for it to be expressed. So it's a complete thing that's happening. The emptiness takes shape. That initial shape is the I am. The I am is still formless, but then it takes a form in order to give it expression. The expression happens. Now, here's the deal. That last stage there, that last stage will either have just the open manifestation or form, the form of of the persona, the individualization, right? Which will then just fade back into then and disappear with the download. Or it's received by a sense of self, which then projects a person onto it, and now it appears to have an objective identity. Are you following this? The person is forever, the individualization, which we call the person, right, is forming and dissolving constantly. Constantly. Right? There's one forming right now, talking to you, right? Every thought that's presenting is forming a new shape, right? New gesture, new language,
Maybe I'll use a character voice, right? From when the days I used to do that.
Maybe not, right? Whatever spontaneous thing takes place in order to make the point, right? And then it's gone. And then I'll take another character, right? And I'll be the serious guy. Oh, I'll be the guru, right? Right? Whatever expression it has to take, and now it's gone. Right? Now, if you think that's not the formation of the person, the person is the idea that the form has some permanent existence. The form's there, coming and going all the time. Emptiness is form. Form is emptiness. You can't separate them. Is that clear? God, I hope everybody gets that. It's so subtle, but it's so beautiful because it redeems your human being. The human being is the form. Without it, there is no expression. Right? The human being is the divine made manifest. It's the piano and the pianist. It's the radio and the music. It's your phone or the computer and the Wi-Fi. I'm broadcasting through the Wi-Fi, right? I'm not hooked up at this moment through the wire. If it wasn't for the Wi-Fi, you wouldn't be seeing me. And of course, even the light that's being picked up by the little lens over there on the camera on the other side. Are you following this? God, it's so powerful and potent. It's just that one little thought that says, oh, there's an entity there. There's no entity. There's just the constant appearing simultaneously, right? The form and the emptiness. They're one thing. And that's why Buddha could say, as I said at the very beginning, that you can even see through, you can let go of the idea that something arises, something endures, and something disappears. Nothing ever exists. The emptiness and the form are one. No thing ever exists. Nothing ever arises, nothing endures, nothing subsides. I'm just laughing because it's so beautifully perfect. I can't put it into words, and I can't stop trying. Max, is that good? Anybody is that good? I hope y'all like that. It's like, oh, I'm so happy for that question. Thank you. Thank you. Short answer, but right to the point. I mean, that's Zen. That's Mu. That's the oak tree in the garden. That's... Jay, I remember when I first started on this path, every action was a devotion, or like a puja to Krishna, or whoever inspired me at the time. No, it's all complaints in the head. Get back to that. Get back to the devotion. Get back to Krishna. Krishna is simply another word for pure consciousness, or the true self, or who you really are. So it's Krishna doing every act, or it's pure consciousness doing every act. You are that. You are that. The personal realization of Buddha knowledge, or Krishna knowledge, if you prefer, because you came from that tradition. Right? So good enough. Yeah. Krishna J. Buy a Baba mug? All right, maybe I can... Lisa and I have been toying with this, and there are a lot of places where there's a little setup fee, but I don't actually have to buy them. They make the bulk of the profit, but they just print them and send them out. So it's not like I have to buy a whole bunch in advance and keep them in stock. That might be kind of fun. Some of them actually have them in that will do them in Europe as well. So they print them locally, so you don't have to ship overseas and the like. From habit. What? Oh, Mary, there. Mary, many changes are happening inside of me, G. Oh, I'm happy and, yeah, I know. Oops. But hubby's not getting it. I feel he reacts to me as he still does from our past. I try to calm him down to see that I'm coming from peace, but he still reacts from habit. Any suggestions? Yeah, I'm sure I do. Waiting for the download. It's inevitable in a relationship, especially a long-term one like yours, that there's going to be these places where somebody gets ahead, right? Really cherish what's happened to you, and recognize that the calling for you is to see that suffering beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Become so overwhelmingly devoted to the freedom from suffering, your own and his, that it won't matter anymore to you. Right? It simply won't, it really won't matter. You know, he's really not going to be able to see you coming from peace until he has tasted some of that peace. Right? The less you react to anything he says, which at first may even make him react more because he wants you to react, right? And really be open, because sometimes in a relationship with somebody, your action is what he got that says, oh, you're there, you care, I matter to you, you're responding. So make sure the peace isn't so quiet that he's not interpreting that as she's disconnected, she doesn't care, right? And of course, I know you do, right? But remember, try to get in his head and see how he's seeing it. Because this is often the case with people. We get used to being treated in a certain way, right? And we get certain reactions. And if I'm not used to being treated really with love and with peace, right? Not saying you weren't treating with love, but if I am used to certain signals that I'm comfortable with, and I don't get those anymore, it may be confusing. And before people have done enough work on themselves to be able to kind of be with that, to sort it all out, they'll usually interpret that as something negative, like something's missing. Right? It's not better, right? Does she still love me? Does she still care about me? Is this spiritual stuff more important, right? So just really try to open yourself up and be more sensitive. I know you are very sensitive, but you know, one of the things that comes with this piece is it's kind of a psychic sense, to be able to feel what other people are feeling. And I don't normally talk about this because people like to, I'm going to get this special power. And the moment you think that, you're off track. So don't bother thinking that. But just kind of open yourself up to see, because we can feel more than we realize. We can feel what's going on around us a whole lot more than we realize. Like in the retreat we did, when I started having you feel your hands, and then the energy in your hands, and then the energy inside your palm and in between your fingers, which you already have some experience with because you've done Qigong. But start extending that into feeling the energy around and with your husband and all of that. Remember, that energy isn't mindless, it's information, it's connection. And consciously open your heart to want to connect to his. And let that be on two levels: the very deep spiritual level of this kind of connection, and also on a very human level. Right? What does he need? What do you need to deepen the human connection? Right? On every possible level. And just kind of let that unfold within you. Just all open, and anything that comes up, anything you might feel around that. Again, let it process in your body, throughout all of you. And really and yeah, it's going to be from habit from him. But of course, no habit can stand against this open love that is growing within you. It just can't do it. It's the rescue dog, right? Can't do it. Even the worst rescue dog will eventually respond. We've all been domesticated. Thank you, Mary. Max, honestly though, I feel schizophrenic and mentally ill. Let's go back to what you said before. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's because what can happen with the kind of the non-dual insights, it can be very disturbing and disorienting, because our point of reference, which is what the egoic mind is, getting upset like that, the whole system doesn't quite know what to do, right? Where's my point of reference? Which is why I say, you don't throw the ego out, you make it healthy. You no longer depend on it in the same way. You don't turn it into the be-all and end-all, this thing that, that you have to protect at all costs. It becomes much more pliable, but it becomes more healthy. It is, you don't have to just kind of toss it all out and have the ego death all at once. Right? It becomes strong. And for most of us, I think everybody in modern Western world, the ego has been, it's a very unhealthy ego. Look around. The world is a result of generations of very unhealthy ego. Probably millennia of unhealthy egos in a culture that produces them. So we definitely, and that attitude has now kind of gotten into non-duality, thinking, oh, it's a way out, which is really a different form of egoism. As Nisargadatta pointed out, that desire to get out of it is part of the dream. Right? So you notice that the ego is inherently unstable. It needs something to stabilize it. It doesn't need to be thrown away. And just notice that the ego is something, it's a process. The storyteller mind, it's a process. It's something that shapes itself appropriate to the circumstances. But there is something very, very solid here, right? Which is the real you. There is an authentic you. And that authentic you manifests itself in a very authentic human manifestation as somebody who has particular likes and interests and preferences that gradually change over time. Obviously, the interests of the 10-year-old are not the same as the 25-year-old. But there's a consistency in your life, isn't there? It's not as if it's a sudden change all of a sudden, right? There's a consistency. There's been something that's really been similar throughout your entire life. So let the medication do its job. But remember, all the medication is doing is removing some of the extreme symptoms. What I would really recommend to you, Max, is doing more. I don't know what you're doing with your body and your diet. Make sure you're really eating healthy, natural, unprocessed foods to get rid of the intrusive toxins, the shit, basically. Right? We're going to be doing some stuff about food in the Me Time, Mastering Me Time class. Lisa's an expert. She's a certified nutritionist. She's an expert in that sort of stuff, both in movement and in food. And we'll be doing that in some follow-up classes as well as our Happy Human Starship, our 12-week immersion. Class. So that's her area of expertise, and I stay out of it. She coaches me. But those are aspects we can look at. Look into the body, right? To start giving yourself ways of which you can begin to use the body to process through these things, because it is just pent up stuff. There needs to be an anchor point, and the schizophrenia, the scattered ego. Remember, it's a disconnect not just from who you really are, from the spiritual reality of you. It's a disconnect from nature, from our human nature. And with that, the ego is marooned. I mean, it's a guy out on a raft in the middle of the ocean, right? It has no point of reference. So it gets and that's what the schizophrenia is. They're just kind of grasp something to hold on to, right? It feels so unstable, right? And so I don't want that for you. So whatever you're holding on to at the moment is fine, right? So we can grow through it very gently, rather than sometimes just ripping something out of your hand, which a lot of like Kundalini yoga does that. Sometimes the the non-dual teaching will do that, kind of pushes you into a corner and forces you to admit things. Kind of take a position that you're really not ready to take. So kind of back off a second. Just feel your body for a minute, right? It's very anchored. The body's very anchored into this earth, right? Yeah, I mean, it's one with the earth. Right? So just feel the breath. Yeah, okay, I'm breathing. Yeah, there's a good starting place. Right? I don't know who I am. I don't have a clue. Good, great starting place. But I'm breathing. I'm here, one foot in front of the other. There's all sorts of ways of just kind of reorienting yourself. So you don't feel scattered. There's a very gentle place in which you can approach this. So, God, I hope that helps you. Tabby, I'm scared to leave. We have children. Thank you, Pete. You are the love. May you have all health and happiness to spread the light of love. Is there any limit of doing tapping in a day? Absolutely not. What I do recommend, though, is that you do stop and just check in with the body, right? You know a good place to start? I've got a video out called presence tapping, and I do this periodically. I think I may have even done a course on it. I forget the courses I've done, which is just tapping and breathing, and then stopping and checking with the body. It really is bringing attention back into a reference point, right? It may sound not spiritual at all because I keep coming back to the body, but it's a way of anchoring ourselves, so that and checking in, so the attention goes away from the activity of the mind, which is where we become so unbalanced, coming to some place. So when we come back, there's a solid place in which we can begin to go more deeply into the places where we really need to go into, and approach the dismantling of the ego with more confidence and power than you can't do that from an unstable place. You simply can't. You can't do that. And I know, scared. We have children. Yeah, I know exactly. You're in a place where you can't just walk away. So you have to take care of this in here first. And when I got divorced, my kids were like 12 and 13 when I finally could do it. And it was partially because I wasn't strong enough, because of the incredible abuse I went through as a kid, and how well my first wife managed to manipulate me and abuse me to the point until I finally got the strength to be able to do it, and the money to be able to do it. So I kind of bought my way out of it. And within a very short time, the kids ended up coming and living with me full time. They didn't want to be there, and then I was a single parent again until they went away to college. So there are always ways. There are always ways, but it has to start here. And again, I have to iterate, because I've always been reluctant to do this in the past. Get help. Get consistent help. A lot of times these are things we just can't do them on our own. And wanting to do them on our own is one of the species, one of the symptoms of that kind of trauma. I tried to do it on my own a lot, and I don't do it anymore. When I run into something, I get help. My Sufi master friend is helping me work on somatic experiencing. Right? I don't hesitate anymore. When I run into something, it's like, oh, no, I can't do this one. I'm getting help. It's not worth waiting for. It's one of the symptoms. It's one of the reasons I lowered my price. I cut my prices by 2/3 and made a sliding scale, because I want to be able to help more people individually and more over an extended period of time. So please seek out the help you need. Mary says, getting tired of explaining to him what he's not willing to see. So don't explain. So don't try. Just live it. Be with him as best you can, and let it unfold. It will. Just open your heart to yourself and to him. Just, and have no expectations whatsoever, and just let whatever happens, happens. Jennifer, many mind the same. The later I get, the more it pulls his unconscious comments that can be tough at times. I do my best to see him as he is. With practice, I use those moments to notice my unhealed. Yeah. Hey, Lisa, I think we're going to have to start a mating site. A matchmaking site for all the conscious people that want a conscious mate. Let's see, and then we'll have to get in our network. We'll have to get some conscious divorce lawyers and. Oh boy! Now I'm going to get in trouble. Yes. Use it as part of your practice, but give priority to your own need to be whole, to realize, to really come into the fullness of your wholeness. That is, in all of you, and let that become a visible practice in your life, in the way it's experienced, in the way it's seen, and it'll have its impact. And the people in your life currently will either respond and come along, or they won't. And it's just the way the Tao works. Dear P, you're loved and spreading love. Grateful, right? Grateful and humble, you're right, that I'm in no position to give certificates, but I feel scared and anxious leaving the relationship. Yeah, of course you will. Of course you will. Don't worry. Yeah, everything you're feeling. So I feel scared and anxiety. So love that. What is that? But your natural desire for self-protection. And the only reason it's triggered is because there's also the deep desire for genuine passion, intimacy, companionship, and closeness. Right? They're both there. So embrace both. That part, the anxiousness and the fear, is what? So thank you for doing your best to try to protect me. Because that's what fear is there for, right? It's a protective mechanism. And anxiety is just fear that doesn't know what to be afraid of, right? It just assumes there's something to be afraid of, right? And if your wife is not meeting your needs, well, then there is something there, and you don't know what to do. But the alternatives aren't very pleasant, and there's children involved. And, I mean, you're frozen. There's no way out of this, and so you're in that state of I can't do anything. So recognize that you're in a frozen state. Okay, this is where I'm at. I can't move. There's no place to go. Okay, so just breathe and just be with that. Recognize this is where you're at. And then move a finger or something. Just to really be present with complete honesty. But also recognize that, also is here is the life force. The chi is here. And I didn't make it. I can't get rid of it. Something in me wants freedom. It wants love. It wants real intimacy, closeness, tenderness. Right? It wants that. It wants my children to experience that. It wants them to have an example of that. I don't want my kids growing up having this. I want them to have passionate, close relationships. Right? Right. So you can see the force that's happening inside of you, and I want you to feel that, because that will eventually find its way. Lovely. Did Lisa just announce the name of the next Om School Live to everyone, including me? See, I get no respect. I get no respect. By the way, G, this is the show we're going to do. See what I got to deal with? You see what I got to deal with? I absolutely love it. Hassan, we love you, Guruji P. Guruji, thank you. Tabby, it fogs my brain in projecting negative scenarios, getting worried about our children. Wish to move out of this circle. My stomach aches also, form of indigestion. Yes, yeah. Follow what I've said and just let me know what happens, please. Please. Surrender to exactly what you're feeling. That's the whom you surrender to, Tabby. The feelings themselves, the body, the experience. It's not a whom out there. It's a what, and it's right here. Surrender. The antidote for any kind of anxiety or worry is to surrender to this right now, as it is. You know, imagine the antelope that's running away, or the gazelle or the impala running away from the cheetah. Every which way, one slight slip, the cheetah's got it. And what do? Boom. Surrender. That's surrender. Collapse. And what happens then? They wait. One of two things is going to happen. The cheetah is going to lose interest because that total collapse into the freeze mode. In some predators, it requires the resistance of the prey is what triggers their aggression that makes them follow through and do the kill and eat them. And without that resistance, they calm down, they don't have the aggression, and they walk away, and the prey gets away. Or it completely numbs them, and they don't feel the pain of death. It's such a surrender because it's the last-ditch attempt to survive. Now in humans it's different. I don't want to go into all the details of it now because I'm going to be doing a series of videos on it. But that moment of surrender is what allows us to stop fighting and allow for the natural resilience and our natural primordial wisdom to begin to take over. Because there's something in there, right? Remember, it's not just all the fear and anxiety. There's also the deep desire for freedom. You can't have one with it. They're both there in you. And they're both designed to work together. Be in the lap of God, empty trusting to the higher will. Rumi said, who brought me will take me home. The DJ Q-Mob. Is the only free will we have to accept the will of divine? Well, if I was to speak in absolute non-dual terms, even that is make two. There's me surrendering to the will of the divine. All there is the will of the divine, so there's nobody there even to surrender, is there? Again, Balyani said, God takes the last step on the journey that never happened. God surrenders to God. Nobody knows God but God. Nobody reaches God but God. Nobody surrenders to God but God. God is the message, the messenger, and the one to whom the message is sent. Now that's the absolute truth. Our experience is that there is someone who surrenders. That's the experience. There's an experience of us surrendering to God and feeling the bliss of that surrender. This is what Buddha meant by the personal realization. So there's this bliss of finally letting go, falling into the arms of divine love, and this experience of reunification, right? The infinite theme of love manifesting itself. the absolute truth of it is, this is God replaying herself, re-experiencing herself infinitely over and over and over again. Giving the message, being herself the message, sending the message to herself, and being herself the receiver of the message. This is the great mystery of the of oneness, an explanation of oneness, which is Balyani's, to know thyself is to know your Lord, which is what I'll be doing the next retreat on. I'm not exactly sure what the dates are going to be yet, but you're following that? It's different levels of perception. On the most fundamental level, the level of the ego, the personality and all that, if you look at the child or an animal, there's no free will there, right? The animal's just obeying their conditioning, as is a child, right? We're just obeying our nature, right? Like an animal would, right? The animal gets trained, the child gets disciplined and conditioned, we obey it. And at a certain point, our own natural preferences come up, and then there's a little battle between my nature, which is the things that I personally want, and my conditioning. And it appears as though I'm making choices, but I'm really just kind of obeying my nature, or not obeying my nature according to... So there appears to be a free will. There appears to be that we experience it as choice. Right? But then eventually, even that kind of matures to this place where our sense of self gets bigger and bigger, and we just, our knowledge of what's true and what's real and what's loving, which guides the choices. And, once you know what love is, what happiness is, you don't consciously choose anything else. So we're not really choosing, right? we're just discerning between what's more loving and more happy against what's less loving and less happy. So choice is kind of just a word that appears like we have, but underneath it's always a discerning between what's best according to some kind of criteria of which we're conscious or not conscious. I mean, really, that's what's going on. And then ultimately, it kind of falls into that pure non-dual, mysterious oneness that I was talking about in the beginning. But beautiful question, DJ QMAP. Lovely, lovely. Love the name too. Except my epic fucked upness. Tevi, you're the gift. I'm seeing love in you, brother. Thank you, Tevi. Same to you. Banyan tree. Do you have any connection to the banyan tree? Well, positive Patty. How come I cannot possibly say that without an Irish accent? I just can't say it. I got to put it in the Irish accent, for crying out loud. For feck's sake. Only that, that whole story, mythical as it is, of the Buddha's enlightenment is just so stirring and touching of the heart. We all have our banyan tree, the tree of enlightenment that we've sat under. And the banyan tree is really interesting because it is it's the tree that forms its roots from the top down. That is the banyan tree, right? Yeah. We had someone, I lived in Florida, and you'll see a banyan tree forest, and then recognize it can be like, a couple of square miles, but it's one tree. And you can find the actual one tree because the branches spread out, and you'll see them. They've got these long vines coming all the way into the ground. But then they hit the ground and take root, and they spread out, and then they grow other trees. So the one tree ends up becoming hundreds of trees. So that one tree, a forest, is one tree. So the metaphor of sitting under the tree, having to be a banyan tree, is even the tree is mythological in its nature. It's extraordinary. It's really quite extraordinary. Barbara, hey G, thinking of kinesiology, I'm asking the body for answers. Who is answering? The ego? So many people trust these answers as the truth. I'm not sure of that. No, you can't trust it as the truth. You can't. Because a lot of people see muscle testing as absolute. It's good. It's useful. It's usually closer to the truth than the head. It'll answer more truthfully. But if there's a great deal of trauma, right, which is centered in the body, it's going to answer the truth according to the trauma, right? It doesn't have any access to any truth deeper than that. That's as far as it can go. And so it has to be taken with a grain of salt. The deeper work has to be done. The body does not have access to any greater truth than it itself has gone through and gotten access to. And ultimately, when it does, it gets access to the very same 100% truth that you would through spiritual revelation. It's the same place. Matter of fact, when I've gone through some somatic experiencing, which is pure body work, my experience after work, it's as if my body went through enlightenment, through Kensho. That's what it feels like. It's this incredible, spacious experience. With exactly the same kind of experience and the enlightenment experiences I've had of suddenly the world coming back up, those things come back up. It's very familiar. Very, very familiar. Yes, it's not the ego per se, right? Because the ego is a manifestation, it's part of the picture. Remember, this is all one picture. The emotional distress and the like, the egoic mind, conditioning, trauma, all of it. It's one thing. Thank God for Gabor Mate, who was pointing out the fact that the mind, the body, the immune system, all the various functions, you cannot separate. They are not different systems. It is one thing. Different aspects of one thing. You cannot separate emotional turmoil from the immune system. Matter of fact, they've done studies of parents who are under a lot of financial stress, that there'll be a compromised immune system in their children. There is no separation between any of this, except our minds do that, which is why our medical system is so far behind the actual evidence and real stuff that's already been irrefutably demonstrated. So yeah, muscle testing is valuable up to a point, as is kinesiology. Sarah K. Such beautiful advice for procrastination. I can feel how it also applies to cravings and addictions. Indeed it does. Indeed it does. Yeah, as does habits. I got a bunch of tricks in my little bag here that Lisa and I will be. I got the habit tricks. Lisa's got the movement tricks, and we'll be pulling them out of our bag. Yeah, we'll have our magician hats on. Max, I love you so much. It's like a masquerade with different faces. I'm just afraid of it all, but I'm so happy to be this, whatever this is. I heard the most incredible songs. Love you. Thanks. Thank you, Max. David Elaine, deep thanks once again for satsang, G. Thank you, guys. Merck, good evening from dark and dreary sweet. Oh yeah, you guys are headed into the perpetual night. Oh yeah, that's right. Our clocks changed last night, so it's going to be like before 5, it's dark. Yeah, so we're headed into our very short days, and I'm pretty far north, very far north actually. So almost as far north in the U.S. as you can get. Well, I think Maine might get northern anyway. Good evening. Oh, Max, I love you, and I'm out. Peace, brother. John Lane, unhealthy food equals unhealthy mind and body. It is, oh yeah, I feel it. Yeah. Yeah, I do. What can I say? You know, I love my, I will love my occasional pizza and beer. But, you know, I even heard Muji say, God, I love pasta. When I eat pasta, I suffer. But it's worth it. So, there you go. Mary, thank you, G. I do feel this pain and I understand what it's about. I'm now standing in my place of not taking a side anymore, as that just creates more division. Of course I love him. I can't keep holding him on to how bad everyone is and the world too. It's difficult at times to be with him when he's in that place and I'm not. Thank you, Jennifer. I know that there are unsealed parts of me that get triggered too. Yes. Yeah, I know, Mary. You're just so full of love. And wow. You know how many times people like to talk about past lives, right? You're going through another one. You're going through a rebirth now. You're going through another one, right? How many have we actually had in this one, right? You know, forget the physical birth. How many bodies have you been through, right? I'm what I meant. See, if it's 70 every 10 years, so it's like every 7 years. So I'm into body 8, right? What? And you know, energetically, it's like how many lives have you had, right? I'm clearly headed into a new one, right? I mean, people have commented that my style of teaching has changed over the last year or two, right? And hopefully I'll last long enough that it's going to change again. So, yeah, fantastic, yeah. Yes, and yeah, and you know, we can't determine what's going to happen, how it's going to affect others, what they're going to do, what changes are going to happen, what things are going to solidify, what things are going to fall away. We just don't know. Right? As my son brilliantly said to me, he said, Dad, I've learned that parenting is all about letting go. And I've watched him do it. He's watched his daughter and now his second daughter. It's like, yeah, that's exactly letting go. So I've watched my granddaughter now transition. You know, when I used to take her to swimming and take her into change and all that kind of stuff, and then watch her getting a little bit self-conscious about, you know, me watching her change, and then not being self-conscious, and then all of a sudden now it's like, now she's all by herself, right? All complete privacy now, and just watching her before I always had to be with her. Now she's off some places by herself, and then come back and check, and just watching her world get bigger, letting go. I do it with students too. I've had some students who've been with me a long time, and all of a sudden, going to walk on my own. Go, great, off you go. And I'll come back and check in, just like little kids, and like it's the teacher you go, oh, I want to keep them. No, I don't. I want to keep them around. And then I miss them, and I go, oh, I wonder how they're doing. And I'm like, yeah, it's. Gee, we'll all be fighting over you as our conscious partner. J.A., I think it'd be hard for the other person to ignore the consciousness that shines through the other body. I feel like they'll be compelled to change their own patterns or reject the body through which it is shining. Amen. I didn't make up this stuff. I'm just playing by the rules. You hope, right? You hope that they will respond to it. But But in my experience, most of the time they don't. That's just been my experience. My God, I hope that changes. Maybe it's not just a sudden thing. Maybe it'll take a long time. The simplest way I could put it is it's hard to not smile back at a person who always has a smile and not the annoying be positive all the time kind of smile. No, I get it. Yeah. That's true for you. I know that's true for you. But that's not necessarily true for everybody. Yeah, there is that sick, annoying, spiritual kind of smile. You just smack them at one. Ava, thank you, G, for being here today. Love and wisdom. What a pleasure to listen to you. Thank you, Ava. Purple Vani one. That made me laugh out loud when you did the Irish accent. Love listening to you. Much love. You may not know, I used to do voiceovers. It's one of the lives I led for commercials, and I even did video games. So accents, character voices just always came very easy for me, and I still love doing them. And every now and then they start popping out. And Irish I really like. I don't know, just kind of maybe my own genes. My family came over on the whole Ellis Island thing, and so my father even used to tell the story. It's probably made up, but who cares? My mother used to blush because she thought it was so uncouth, but that I guess my great-grandfather came over to Ellis Island, and the story is he had to swim ashore when they got into New York Island, because the captain found out that my great-grandfather was kind of having fun with the captain's wife. And rather than die before he made it to port, he jumped overboard and swam to shore. Probably made up it. What a great story for the Walsh's arrival in New York. So that's the stock I was made of there. Got that fucking right, hey? Yeah, there's your guru story for you, eh? Corey, these Sundays with you bring me right into peace. Love your voice and presence. Thank you so much. From your neighbor in Spokane. Spokane. Wonderful. I'm on my way to Body 7. I know what you mean. Many lifetimes, all in the now. Love you, G. Love you, Mary. Positive Patty. My Irish accent sounds a little bit different. Yeah, there are a lot of variations of it that I could do a bunch of different ones. When I was actually doing accents, I could get all sorts of different ones, because there's English. There's all there's difference in Indian. Every one of them has all sorts of subtle different dialects, and I was really good at nailing. Some come immediately. Some I had to listen for a while. German took me a while to get. Portuguese was difficult. Spanish has all sorts of Castilian to Argentine. And the like, and characters. Scottish. Can you do a Scottish one? Not up I have to hear it for a minute. It was always my ear. I could imitate anything I could hear, but it took. It takes a while. Some of them I have to hear it for a while and begin to play with, and I have a good connection between ear and mouth. Some people it's eye. My son can draw really wonderful because there's a connection between eye and hand. For me, it's ear and mouth. But I have to. Some I have to hear. The Scottish one that it's got a different kind of drawl to it. There's a similar inflections to Irish. And you put the Liverpool, you put the English to the Irish inflections, and you get the Liverpool kind of thing. And so you can it's kind of fun, kind of looking at how they actually work. But not doing it all the time anymore. I don't have the same kind of spontaneous Can't do it quite as spontaneously, but it's so much fun that Scottish is a fun one. But I do have to, that one I have to listen to a bit and practice a bit, and then I can do it. I know an actor from my country who can imitate another person's voice. That one, some of them I can get Yoda every now and then, but it takes a moment. There are a few that I could I could get. I can do a good Liam Neeson. With a bit of practice. Again, from outside Glasgow. Shoot, if he did G over the phone, I'd be fooled. Oh, it's still fantastic. I'm outside Glasgow, yeah. Maybe there's a challenge for me to try to do a reading as Sean Connery or something. Yeah, I admire the actors that can do it and they sit down and spontaneous. But of course, I know what they've been through to do that. I know the kind of training and the like. And I even remember Robin Williams, who another one who could do it very spontaneously. But I remember him doing the role of Popeye and talking about it. He says, "No, I can't do it yet. I can't do it yet." On some talk show talking about the movie, he said, "I don't have it down yet." So he too was somebody, he didn't get them all instantly. He had to study, listen, practice. There's a connection between the ear and the voice until it becomes spontaneous, until it just becomes, you're there, you're in the character, and everything comes out that way, right? Russian, I can pretty much do Russian right off the bat. It just feels so good in the mouth. All right, enough. You guys got me going now. All my love to you all. I will definitely not be making an excerpt of Voices with G. These were all my schizophrenic voices when I was a kid. Anyway, I love you all. Until next time. Namaste.